Einen wunderschönen guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Hier sind wir wieder, Ihre freundlichen CRM-Experten vom CRMKonvos und bringen Ihnen nicht nur die Neuigkeiten dieser Woche, die ausgesprochen spannend war, sondern wir bringen Ihnen auch einen besonderen Gast. Und wieder einmal wechseln wir multikulturell affin unsere entsprechende Präsentationssprache und gleich werde ich auch dem Handy den Hals abdrehen, damit es keine weiteren Geräusche macht. I welcome our dear colleague Jesus Hoyos from Florida, and he will introduce himself in a minute. And I'm very happy to have with me today, for one of the last times out of Mannheim, Germany, Tom Wieberneit. And now the floor is yours, Jesus, and tell us a bit about how you came to the magic CRM market.
Well, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
My name is Jesus Hoyos. I'm from Puerto Rico. And I'm right now streaming out of Miami. That's what I call home today. And prior to COVID, I would spend most of my time in Mexico City and other countries in Latin America. How I came to do CRM. It's a very interesting question because I moved from Puerto Rico when I moved from Puerto Rico to the States. I went to Iowa State in Ames, Iowa. And in there, I started, working on what's called MIS, Management Information System. I graduated. I moved to Florida, to Orlando, and my first job at that moment was as a programmer, Informix 4GL programmer. Okay, for those who the white hair that I have, we work with a company called Data Code. We developed a program called Enterprise Series. And that was back then when you will, compile, in a Unix machine, okay, and have those big tapes, And I remember going to DEC, Honeywell, IBM, or those companies that have those, big computers that will put the program, compile it, and then produce the tape, and we'll package the tape together, and we send it to the people that will buy from us. And then we will get a phone call, and they will go to the computer and install the tape, in the mainframes or whatever it was, the AS400 and Unix environment. And I will walk them to the installation and then recompile, put the Informix 4GL, and voila, they have a CRM system. So back then it wasn't called CRM, it was called telemarketing or telesales. It was more into making phone calls, So that's how I learned my MarTech back then. That's how I learned, how to bring marketing, because back then it was traditional marketing. So everything on how to, have an ad on a newspaper or a TV ad or radio ad or back then a digital ad. We have, that was when Alta Vista and Yahoo, and the early stages of Google, we had to keep track of that. And one of those, during that process, we used to compete back then with a company called Brock out of Atlanta and Cibo. Yeah. And one of our first customers in Latin America back then was DHL. And they gave me the opportunity to go, I switched from developer to business analyst. And, I went there and implement this product all over Latin America, including Brazil. And that's why I got, my feet wet with Latin America. And I started, learning more and more about the market in Latin America. Back then, I used to live in Orlando. So I had to fly from Orlando to Miami, the different countries. Coming back, I do remember, seeing this big company logo by the airport called Cambridge Technology Partners. And I said, who are they? Actually, I do have their coffee cup in here.
Yeah, still. Okay.
And that was from, way back. I have feathers in there, but that's another story. But that's Cambridge Technology Partners.
Yeah, genau. I know it. Exactly. That's the logo. Yeah, I recall.
Out of Boston. And they gave me the opportunity to be, the regional domain partner for CRM. So, they started to implement Bantif, Clarify, Edify, Scopus, Civil, Keenan. So we did a lot of telco work. We did a lot of banking work, implementing CRM. And this is very interesting because going back, I know last week you have Esteban and Bob from SAP, and they were talking about, back then Civil, and I remember implementing Civil for a telco company and banking, and it was a whole end-to-end system. It wasn't just for SFA, it wasn't for marketing, it wasn't for customer service, it was for the whole thing. It was end-to-end. So that's my background, implementing end-to-end systems, from the CRM system. Not when people saw CRM came in, or when Salesforce started to show up, they started, pushing SFA, Salesforce automation, and that's probably where we started to have this issue in the industry, client server versus the cloud, and because they needed to start with something quick with the cloud, they started with SFA, but all these companies who are doing CRM today, they started with that blueprint. They forgot to do the whole thing. And that could be another topic, but that's part of the challenges that we have in Latin America, implementing the whole thing, the whole ecosystem. And I know that we were part of the refresh analyst session, and we're talking, what is CRM? What's the definition of CRM? For me, it doesn't matter. Call it whatever, as long as it's the whole end-to-end. I know that there's a market share we got to go after, but every time that people put out there, Salesforce that has whatever the 19% or the 20% or 50% of the market share of CRM, what that means in CRM, I don't know what that means, So there, we have that out there in terms of the system, the industry, but that needs to be defined. So for me, I help a lot of companies define what that ecosystem is. Call it whatever you call it, but let's define what that is, and then put it together, and that's the same thing, when you have companies who are trying to do an analysis, vendors are trying to go into the market, I help them. But I've been doing this, implementing all these tools for many years, and then I came across a guy called Paul Greenberg.
Hola. Paul Greenberg.
Most unknown person on the planet.
And
the encounter was in 2001.
And I came through a mutual friend of ours, and then one of my business partners met him as well, and I said, I want to do what Paul Greenberg is doing in Latin America. Okay, I have all that knowledge, know-how, So I talked to him, I figured that out, and I started doing this part-time, and then came Stefan Kolsky, Brent Larry, and all you guys, the rest of the mafia, So
mafia. I heard mafia.
Mafia, the mafia, and that's what I, at CX2 Advisory, I help companies and vendors, analyze and do something, whatever they want to do in Latin America. And I've been working with Oracle, SAP, Sugar, Soho, Salesforce, and many others as the analysts in the last 10 years. And now, because of the COVID-19, now I'm, I needed to step back, and now I started to do this probably 60, 90 days ago, full time in a sense that, trying to do that, help companies manage that. Not easy to do, as you probably know, it's part of what I try to do, but it's fun, and this is the challenge. A lot of people believe, people, talking multinationals, vendors, that the best practice for my CRM that I have in my bank outside Latin America is going to work in Latin America. Okay, or if I have a vendor and the traditional safe path to sell is going to work in Lima, Peru. Those best practices will never work, unless you apply them, you test them, you validate them, and then you start working on them. And let me give you one traditional example. Traditionally, the collection part of a sales process is after you close the deal. it goes into the back office, and then you have a team who's going to do collections. Okay, in Latin America, that's part of the sales process. So you have local CRM systems that they come up with a opportunity management process that will manage the collection process. Okay, I'm talking to one of the distributors or resellers from Soho here in Mexico, and they put together a mini application that just do that. So that's one example of the many one out there of how to manage relationship through a system, because it doesn't matter what you use at the very end in Latin America. Is the hug, is the kiss, is the closeness, the relationship that you're going to have with the vendor, from that point of view. The other one that drives me crazy are the renewals. When you do account management, the sales model is the new business, that you bring to the so that that average revenue that you bring is based on new business. The renewals is managed by somebody else, and that doesn't happen in Latin America. You need to have, and it doesn't matter if you're a software, a cloud company who's selling software, or you're selling widgets. Your subscription model needs to include that relationship. You are not the transaction. You are not the average number somewhere in a report. And that's one of the challenges that we have in Latin America. And on top of that, all the nuances that we have, local, within countries, within regions, So that's part of the question. Silence, it's
silence. Yeah.
What I see is there are a lot of similar actions, such as you go into a country with a solution and you find there is a solid foundation, but it's not the real thing for the local environment. Such as when Soho came to Germany, and at that time, 10 years ago, the first distributor was found. They had some own experiences, such as the product was really not fitting German needs. And they made some integrations for popular local accounting systems, some other stuff, which is mandatory. If you want to make business here successful, you need to have.
Yeah, and that, from the Latin America perspective, and let me put some definitions in there because it's really important to what you're saying here. When you think Latin America, we have different naming convention. You have South America, Central America, Mexico, North America, and then you have Brazil, no? So when you look into Latin America, you got to think in the context of, it's not the same, okay? And when you think Brazil, Brazil is different. It's a different universe, okay? Then you have the rest of the Spanish speaking, okay, which is is different but very similar. You can get by somehow, okay? Yeah. And then you have the Andean region. You have the southern region, the southern cone, and then you have of course the Caribbean speaking, Spanish speaking, English speaking. And then, and sometimes the Caribbean is defined as Puerto Rico. Cuba is excluded out of there. Then you have Central America, and then you have Mexico. Mexico could be by itself a separate territory entity, or sometimes it's part of the North America region. Where if you have a Hispanic guy who wants to do something in Mexico, here we go. Yeah, we have Mexico as part of the Northern Territory, but it's not a true territory. So by not defining that in your own as a software vendor, and you go in to that country, you're gonna miss those nuances, those laws, those things that you need for accounting or CRM that you need to have. And the typical problem that we have today with any CRM system are the address formats. Everything is based on a zip code. Costa Rica, they don't have addresses. Yeah. Most countries don't have zip codes, or the data to do the lookup doesn't have. So now we have lookups with Google, and it will bring you the information, you know. But how do you translate that address format and you put into the system to, you know, validate duplicates or the long names, you know? My name is Jesus Hoyos, but I could put in a system which is due by culture, Jesus Manuel Hoyos Delgado. You know, where do I put my middle name? You know, on the last name. So just to start with, that it doesn't work. Even the email .com mx, you know, for Mexico, the phone numbers.
Yeah.
You know, so all that stuff, you know, it's broken. It's broken. It's broken in the legacy system. It's broken in the cloud systems out there, and that by itself is a problem. And I have worked with companies explaining this to them. Look to a partner who can help you. You know, Soho had the opportunity to work with a local partner to help them in the beginning as well. You know, it used to call Maya CRM for the Mayan Indians. You know, back then. You know. And then some of them are starting little by little, you know. But of course, you know, SAP, Microsoft, and Oracle been there, done that. They already have the legwork because as companies that started working on premise, you know, they've been for years, you know, centuries, you know, in Latin America, you know, they sort of have that already, you know. But that basic problem that you have with the address, if you compound it with the best practice that we only have one email in the marketing system. I'm being sarcastic, you know, because it's not the best practice today. It probably was 20 years ago. But we have today, you know, many emails, many, you know, messaging system. We have, you know, WhatsApp and this and that, and we have different phone numbers. I have different identities. And then you compile that best practice and you bring that into Latin America when you have a multinational from the States, you know, that because of budget constraints, they only can implement one marketing automation for 2 business units, and the 2 business units, one has B2B and B2C. Good luck. You know, that explode the whole thing. And then you add the nuances for Latin America or the nuances for the local region, because you have nuances, you know, between, for example, Medellin, Colombia with Bogota. You know, the way they do business is different, and they have different laws. The same is in Brazil. In Brazil, you have to multiply that by, you know, by 20, you know, and Mexico is the same. So that's part of what's happening today to the world, no? And Cuba is interesting because, as I mentioned, Cuba is out. You know, you know, you have, this is the challenge that you have a lot of. You have Latin American companies that are doing business with Cuba. Okay, but they're using a software in the cloud that is based in the United States. That's a no-no. Okay, depending on the day, the time, and the regulation, and whatever the president will say tomorrow or the next day. It doesn't matter if the current president or the past president, you know, because a lot of that's through executive orders. So that's a challenge that you have with Cuba as well. You know, there's people that do business, you know, through Spain and Canada, you know, which is perfectly legal depending on the type of business that you are, you know. But it depends, you know. I had that issue with the company in Mexico, you know, and I had to call, you know, the Soho, the Salesforce, the Oracle to figure that out, no. And then if you're public, there's definitely a bunch of no-nos. If you're a private company, maybe you can get away, depending of the regulation, what product are you selling, and everything from that point of view. You know.
So telling us that in your experience comes to the point that after Obama, and people thought that with Raúl Castro things would ease a bit, not back to the old days, but that there was less friction and, let's say, a milder climate for economical exchange, that this is still getting to freeze again?
Yeah, listen, it doesn't matter who the president is. The point here is that at the very end, you know, if you want to change, the way Cuba is doing business, and you want to change the way you do business with Cuba, I'm talking not only, you know, economic incentive, but, you know, the way you treat Cuba as a country, you have to think, you know, it needs to come, you know, human rights, with definitely with economic empowerment. And there's massive opportunities in Cuba for tourism, but everything is controlled. My mom goes there a lot with her church, and she told me, this is a couple years ago, and she's telling me horror stories, of things that are happening to her. I mean, she will go with donations, and the government will take the donations away, and you keep a few, and I remember during Hurricane Maria, we were discussing, Hurricane Maria and everything. She just came from Cuba, and she told me, Jesus, I know that, in Puerto Rico, they're complaining that they don't have a bathroom to go during those 5 weeks after Hurricane Maria. But I'm staying in places in Cuba, in Havana, and somewhere in the country that they don't have bathrooms. It's like the movies. You got to go outside, So again, and by the way, that happens in any country in Latin America, not because of communism, because of poverty. So you have to look at the two sides of the coin as well, and there comes Venezuela. There's also comes the issue with Puerto Rico as well. It's a territory, and so on. You have Nicaragua, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So
coming back to this cooperation between the Mexican or the business cooperation between this Mexican and the Cuban company, how did they do it?
They managed to use as long as you don't have as long as the data doesn't get stored or doesn't go to Cuba, you should be okay at that moment. Okay, but to be honest, I'd rather say no. From that point of view. But at the very end, that was the key thing. Or you also have the other way. By I don't know, Sugar CRM installed in a local data center in Mexico, and then you don't have the issue.
So they started with doing an own center. So basically,
I think they figured out a way legally that the data wasn't going to Cuba somehow.
Okay.
So again, that's one example of the nuances. I mean, you have that as well in Brazil. In Brazil, you have some counties or regions within Brazil that the data needs to reside in that place. It cannot be somewhere else. Yeah. So I went to that challenge with a group of universities that have different systems, and the cloud sounds good. They're going to save money, but here comes all these. I don't know how they call it, pods that you install somewhere in Amazon. And that's why as well you see Amazon, you see Microsoft, you see Oracle, starting to invest in data centers in the local regions. And that's something, Amazon already started to do that, Google as well. But as they progress through this growth of the iPaaS, they're doing that. So that's something that I've seen that I like a lot. That's good, because when we talk the cloud, not everything is going to be on the cloud. The cloud that multi-tenant cloud. A lot of people are going to be doing single tenant cloud and work with that. For many reasons.
In how far? So what would you say is the biggest difference from the project approach that happen in the various Latin and South American countries that you have seen?
Could you repeat the question again?
What are the biggest differences in the project approaches that you see in the various countries that you're working in? Yeah,
you need to define first of all the type of company that you are. Okay, and a lot of people forget that. I'm talking the basic stuff. So, I mean, if you are a multinational company outside Latin America, and you already have you CRM ecosystem, your call center, your digital marketing, and you have agencies, global agencies. When you deploy that, you need to do an assessment of the nuances, the cultural changes, the change management that you're going to have, because deploying something from the language barrier, the cultural barrier that's very key. I learned that from DHL. But now it's the other way around. If you're a multinational, saying, for example, America Mobile, a multinational from Mexico that will go outside, or Cemex, for example, or Telefónica from Spain, you have to think about the other way around. I'm going to expand from to Guatemala, or I'm going to expand to Spain, or I'm going to open shop, in Florida or in New York. Is the other way around. So you have to think about that as well. Then you have, the multinational that are local. Those are the companies that, they are in Chile, in Argentina, and Peru. They work for different set of rules. And then you have, the small, medium companies from one country, and then you have the micro pymes, the small companies, the 1, 2, or 3 people up to 20. So you have to think about that first, because a lot of these decisions, it doesn't matter what, in Latin America, everything is based on a group of companies that is family owned. Okay? Which is, if you look at, I don't know, Salesforce, they are not family owned. And, but if you look at, America Mobile, Carlos Slim is owned. It's family owned. And it doesn't matter you talk about Grupo Santo Domingo in Colombia, or whatever group you have in different countries. Everything is based on it's a family business, it's a decision. Yeah. Okay, and that's part of our Spanish heritage. From that point of view. So those cultural differences, you need to take that into account. To be able to do that. Then comes the change management, the technologies, and then on top of that, I need to implement best practices. And we assume that because we forget that, we forget that, then here comes the issues of trying to implement something in that particular, company or region, And I'm being in all sides of, all different projects and companies, and I've seen it, from looking from the United States down to Latin America, from Latin America, looking into other places. And that's the biggest challenge that we have today. Then the second challenge that we have, which is the universal challenge, finding people, resources, dealing with the local nuances, people being trained in technology. Okay, and this is something that has to do with equality. We're talking about equality out there, and inclusion. Well, let me take it to the basic level of inclusion and equality. Training and certifications. Training and certifications are made for your English-speaking audience in the United States, and most of the time are done by a white person. Okay, so when you try to take that training and you try to train that certification, you cannot say, "Oh, now we have a Spanish-speaking person doing the training with the content in English." That doesn't work. Okay, so and that's a challenge for people to get trained, to get certified. And now, because we have the Udemy's and we have LinkedIn training, Trailhead, HubSpot inbound marketing, and they're putting content in Spanish and everything. That's fine, but we need to do a lot more. And that goes back to what when Paul and Brent did the CRM Playas, and Brent asked me, what did you see from the big 5 in the conversation? Is that they need to do a lot more. Even John Reed said that, and that's true. They have to do a lot more. And they when they develop software, when they develop training content, they have to think that they cannot think first in the United States and then the rest of the world. They have to think globally, and they put the plan together. And they are not doing that. I haven't seen a single CRM solution provider, whatever you want to call it, doing that today. They haven't. Listen, I had to bring the top person who knows Marketing Cloud to Córdoba, Argentina, fly everybody to Córdoba, Argentina, to do it in English, and do it for 5 days to go slow. English, Spanglish, and I did the same thing in Mexico in order for me people to understand the technology. I'm not talking because I wanted them to get trained. I didn't do it because I wanted to do the certification. It's because they had to, and that costs money. Okay, and that's why you have the technical depths. That's why you have the issues, because nowadays, as you probably know, this is already a big factor. We are not just implementing Salesforce automation or customer service or a call center. We're implementing ecosystem because we're multi-channel, we're omni-channel as consumers, and that's a challenge. And the digital gap in Latin America is getting closer. I mean, people are getting more, savvy using all these technologies, but companies, we are not. Listen, WhatsApp, we were talking about this, WhatsApp is huge in Latin America, not because it's a messaging tool, It's because in good old days, talking on the phone would cost you a lot of money because of roaming within a country. So people would download WhatsApp, go to the internet and make phone calls, and that's already in the DNA. Okay, so and here's the challenge. Now you have all these solutions for WhatsApp, but you talk to the big three or the big five. I want to have WhatsApp integrated. Oh, it's going to cost you,
that was
per user. And that goes back to the issue that we have today with COVID-19, because anything else that I want to do is going to cost me money with the ecosystem. So whatever Bob, from SAP is saying, I like that message a lot. I like what, probably what Soho is doing to keep everything simple. And listen, we went, in my other company, we went from Salesforce to Hotspot to Soho. And we're using Soho everything. And this is very important in terms of the customer engagement agility. And this is accessible to the LATAM market and be able, you're a small business, you can buy these tools and be able to compete with a big company who has all the big toys and spending a lot of money on the big toys. Listen, we replaced LastPass, Wistia, the Altasian, Jira, Harvest for time management, GoToWebinar, Zoom, Hotspot CRM, Hotspot marketing, Hotspot email marketing, Showtime, which is the training session that they have, Surveys, which is already integrated, People, you name it, all this, I lost count already. And we're saving and we
applications, right?
Yeah, and we implement it quickly. We're pros. We know what we're doing. And it works. So it doesn't matter if it's Soho or not. Well, it could be a Salesforce solution or PipeDrive. Whatever solution is. Is that with COVID and the pandemic? We and listen. And this is something that is a challenge. And let me say this. In Latin America, we're always trying to survive because there's always a crisis. We have to look for the exchange rate, the dollar. If we're billing in the local currency or in US dollars, every time that there's a tweet out there or there's a news, everything goes up and down. And that's a challenge that we have today in Latin America. Okay, and because of that, we have to survive. We have to figure out things that are out of the ordinary. And I've been talking to this, in my Spanish podcast a lot. Is that companies in Latin America are doing some really cool stuff because they need to do it.
One could say you are crisis approved. Yeah, you are.
With crisis.
Live in crisis.
Yeah, with crisis approval, I think we got to the point that there's a thin line right now, a very gray area where. Man, I cannot keep paying, for these fees. It doesn't matter if it's on premise or whatever, because the business model changed already. We're living in it's different. We're not today. It's no longer about the cloud. A couple of years ago it was. Yeah, you need to move to the cloud. You're going to save money, okay? But you look at the pricing model that you get with Amazon, and you look at what Oracle is trying to do with the pricing model as well. Because if they lower the pricing on their structure, they can lower the cost of the applications. Okay, so and that's the strategy that probably we saw. They have their own data centers, so they control the cost and they can bring that money down. And they believe about democracy of the tools. And
right.
And of course, they don't have to report to Wall Street.
So they did.
So that's a challenge. I mean, the pricing model. I mean, I think that has to change in Latin America, definitely.
So the pricing model is more usable and feasible for the Latin American markets, as it is taking not the approach we want to be the winners in the US first and then go for another turf. So let me show another question from Marshall, who's reflecting why we don't understand the prevalence of family-owned businesses, where I have to ask friendly translator Tom, what is prevalence?
Vorherrschaft eigentlich. That's really true.
I'm thinking here in Spanish and English to see how to respond to Marshall. Well, everything in Latin America has to do with. It's funny because I just finished another live stream with a company out of Puerto Rico called Brand of Puerto Rico that they sell Puerto Rican products to the diaspora in the States. And what is the cultural difference between United States and Latin America, and maybe let's put it this way: the corporate culture, okay, is that a relationship in Latin America is based on a hug, is based on coffee and a beer and a cigar and a whiskey and mezcal, and it's very family oriented. I mean, you don't go and play golf. You go have dinner with the family. You talk about your life experiences, you exchange that, and a lot of companies have in Latin America they build empires based on relationships, okay, and they traditionally you don't have to report to the Wall Street, so that's a challenge. Some of them they have to, or the local Wall Street, they need to do that, but that's part of the culture. That's part of being have a family, so. That's a challenge that you have to do. However, don't take me. There's a hierarchy. There's all these nuances in Latin America. You need to, that came from Spain. We still have that. Those traditions from being non-secular Catholic people. That's still there. Feudalism is already embedded in many places. So that's part of that. From that point of view, so that's part. So when you do a transaction, it's not here's the order, here's you sign. There's a relationship there, and that's part of how to do business in Latin America.
And how far does that relate to CRM systems on the implementation thereof? Because at the end of the day, it is. And here in Germany, in the US, and New Zealand as well, it's pretty much a relationship business. Whatever business.
Listen, I traveled to Brazil, okay, and I needed to get my 5-year visa, expired and everything, and I spent 3 days waiting to talk to the guy. Okay, I had been in Peru, okay, waiting to talk to the CEO of this telephone company, and he overheard. Okay. By the way, I only have 30 minutes with the guy. He overheard. Listen, I heard you from Puerto Rico. Let's talk mofongo. We spent out of those 30 minutes, 29 minutes talking about life and whatever. He said, "I like you. Let's do business." That chip is part of that. Okay. And the corporate traditional way to sell in Latin America from Latin America, you have an opportunity. You have to forecast. That goes away, so that's embedded, in Latin America. Your sales cycle just take forever. It's difficult to sell Latin America because of that. You cannot project, you cannot do your forecasting, but that's part of that. And that goes back to what you're saying, Ralph, that, if a company wants to change the pricing model, well, let's do a test in Brazil. Let's do a test in Peru. Let's do a test in Mexico. Let's do a test in Spain. Let's do a test with a small business in Montana. And then go do another test, and I think SAP started to do that. I saw, last year something about, value-based pricing or something like that. But, they need to start thinking about how to do that, because this is the problem with all these clouds. They have different pricing models.
They have to rethink their pricing model. It's also for, let's say, further developed countries, such as Salesforce learned their lesson on the hard way, that people prefer to go back to an on-premises system from good old England instead of staying with the Salesforce solution in the largest Israeli telephone company. Yeah?
Well, and keep in keep in mind, Ralph, that Oracle and Microsoft and SAP, they're already in many of these companies. And they can bundle everything, and they can do financing with the local currency, and then this issue of capex versus opex will go away somehow. And because you're going to save money at the very end, and then people move budgets around. you know, and maybe you don't solve the solution for this fiscal year, but maybe you know how to do it for the next fiscal year. So, the pricing in the cloud, probably, when Salesforce and all the others started to work, I think it was earlier, but every time that I go and I see a scale, I have to multiply and divide, and they'll tell me a number of contacts versus a number of emails and everything. It's too complicated. Give me one pricing, and then if there's exemption, you have exemption, and we need to go to that. That will enable more companies in Latin America to buy, your technology vendor, whoever is listening to now, so that's part of that equation. So accessibility, I think, is important, and that's why you see the growth today. We in Latin America with Sendex, Hotspot as well. You see the growth with Soho, with fintechs, and you see that growth because you have some a really good pricing schema that will allow you to get into. We one example. Everything is run out of Mexico, and we're saving money, because we're using Soho. It doesn't do everything that I want. It's not maybe the solution that I would like to have, but it does everything.
You mentioned already several times Pipedrive. What is about Bittrex 24? Is that an opportunity in Latin America as well?
Well, again, a lot of these there's a lot of growth marketers in Latin America that they use affiliate marketing, and they are helping companies install all these system like Pipedrive, and they coach you. This is something as well that a lot of these companies are doing. This is the conversation that I had with Alan Taveras, the chief marketing officer from Bank of Puerto Rico, my last streaming. They said, listen, we go to the small business and we help them set up PayPal so they can pay me and they can have all the products in my commerce. You will never, I don't see, he told me, I haven't seen yet any vendor do that. So that coaching, that love TLC, that you're doing it with a cup of coffee, or you're doing it with a beer or having a cigar or whatever, that's family, that's relationship. And people like that. So a lot of the Soho resellers are doing that. They're not just implementing, they're helping you in your business do the nuances, the things that you need to do in order for you to have the basis so you can go to the next level. The next level is consulting. And that's happening a lot in Latin America. So a lot of these big vendors need to do that. And going back, to the big companies,
being more empathetic or show more empathy, such as get into their business and show them that you understand it and that you are willing without payment to go an extra mile to help him to solve the simple things which make his life painful.
Well, that's a small business, but let me give you a big enterprise, and companies are paying money for consulting and paying money for how you call it, licensing, no? So let's take Salesforce, for example. You bought Pardot, you bought Sales Cloud, Socialized Studio, Marketing Cloud.
It's a never-ending story. It's a money grave.
But listen to this. You need to show empathy to the chief marketing officer who has to deal with 2,000 brands, 2,000 marketing agencies, and he has to put a campaign governance to be able to manage the business units, the campaign process, because if you don't have that, you will never be able to integrate properly. So it's not only that you're going to go there because you know Salesforce, which is fine, but you need to put all this together. And that needs to be part of the empathy that needs to happen out there from that point of view. Because today, and we can talk about the strategy. Strategy goes first. Digital transformation goes first. Customer-centric. But if you don't understand the technology, you're going to fail. You're going to fail, period. And I've seen it. There's a gap of not knowing the technology. And that's why Salesforce is pushing Trailhead. It's the beginning, and SAP, Oracle, all the others need to do that as well. They need to come out with a better Trailhead, because people don't understand technology. There's too much stuff out there. It's confusing. It's complicated. I mean, marketing automation is complicated. I mean, it's not easy to do, man.
I follow that point of view. And this is the reason why the free video trails you find in HubSpot are more inspired by the trailheads, fundamentals, what they have for free in Salesforce. And
Well,
Sugar is learning slowly, but what is the best stuff in their materials is not for free.
well,
So
this is something that I tell anybody. You know, I had this conversation privately with many of my followers, because most of my followers are doers. Where do I start? You say, number one is, you know, you got to go to different places to learn. Number one, you got to definitely, if you want to get into CRM, you got to start with the trailhead. It doesn't matter if you don't, you know, you're not doing Salesforce. You got to, you know, start in there. Then you got to go and understand inbound marketing from HubSpot. Then you got to go to HotSuite, understand social media. Then you got to go to Facebook Business, understand how Facebook works. Then you got to do the same with Google, Twitter, you know. And once you are done, you know, figure out how to, you know, understand, you know, agile marketing, agile project management, you know, and once you understand that, learn a tool to manage the projects. And that's a lot to ask too. That's a lot to ask too, to be all this stuff is happening out there.
And honestly, that's in those environments where people do not have the money to do the training by the service organizations or by the distribution partners or by the business partners. It is, they can do it in the COVID times even better from home, have their plan, make it fit to the time they are available and they have at their hands. And then they have a clearer view and they could, then your advisory is more like you are a travel guide and they take a journey and you accompany them, such as on a hiking trip or kayaking, or if you go with them to the Everglades and you are the guide. Yeah. And
well,
and very much to a realistic approach where we have to rethink if we want to be successful in the next 18 months, that we have more to go to a people business again, and that we think what people need and what is at their benefit, and not that we do the number crunching. And therefore, I positively value the aspect that SAP is taken with a certain deep breath and that they are not making their figures, but on the long term, they think that they manage better if they take a break and set up their own stuff so that they get not dependent on Amazon and the others, but that they have at least the platform and the infrastructure as well. Yeah. So the Zoho aspect, what you said with the, if you have your own infrastructure and you are not relying on the big ones, on the hyperscalers, then you have a certain independency. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, if we, you know, and I know that, you know, we were discussing, you know, to get ready for this meeting, you know, there's a technology part of this in terms of differences, you know, and one clear differences that we have today is the, you know, customer data platform, you know, and that's going to have a big impact in Latin America, because today, most of that data from the marketing point of view is owned by the marketing agencies. Okay. Because they already have the data management platforms. Remember, companies are not buying the DMPs traditionally. You know, an agency will buy it and they will use it with many customers. It's like, you know, HubSpot and Pardot and Marketos, where you have agencies providing that data. So one of the things that I see in Latin America, I say, hey, listen, I want to buy Marketo, Pardot, I want to buy the DMP. You're going to manage it, but it's going to be my own data. Now, if you look at CDP, okay, I had this conversation with Esteban. You know, CDP started because, you know, the CMO and the agency wanted to have, you know, digital data to make decisions. IT, give me that data. IT will say, well, it's going to take me forever. Well, people starting to do all this tagging, so that's why you have a lot of these CDPs from the marketing side. Okay, now you have the new wave of CDPs that's going to include everything, you know, and you will see everybody buying CDPs and you know, and we know why SAP come up with one. We know Freshworks is going to make some announcement this week. and so on and so on, and SAP, everybody, they all have CDPs, you know. Okay, so that's going to be a challenge of who's going to own the data. How am I going to transition that data? Forget privacy. That's something that needs to happen. You know, we protect that. Okay, and that's going to be a challenge by itself. But how am I going to make that transition from the legacy system, you know, to my own system? You know, I've been with companies that are done. We do ecosystem assessments. And they have 5 or 6 DMPs. They're tagging everywhere because they have 5 different brands with 5 different agencies. Now, there's a nightmare to manage that data. So that's going to be a challenge in the market.
It's not only the transition, but is that what, in my wording, I call the CDP a customer-oriented transformation platform, as I believe in the bottom of my heart, then it is that transition phase, and it needs the thinking into the customer in the middle. Yeah. And
listen, I agree with you. And listen, I've been doing CDP since 1997, 96. It used to be called database marketing. Or it used to be called operational database. You know, you would bring the data from many places to put in your data warehouse, and the marketer would say, "Ooh, that's clean data already. Operational data. Can I do a query? Can I do this? Can I do segments? Can I do?" And they used to have that. I mean, that's been there out there forever. Now we're just calling CDP. Business has changed. Data is everywhere. You know, from devices and everything. All that is cool, but you know, it doesn't matter. That transition of having access to that data is going to be tooth and nail between agencies, brands, IT, the local laws, privacy, engagement. So all these wonders are going to happen with CDP. It's going to take time, a lot of time.
It's going to take time, yeah.
And that goes, Tom, what, you know, customer journeys, customer whatever. So that's why, you know, or orchestration, you know. So let me do, you know, I'm a big proponent of small data. Use the data that you have in front of you. Forget about the rest.
Well, I'm rather a fan of smart data. Use the right one.
Again,
as you don't know what the right one is, you need a lot of it, right? So
here comes, you know, it's a, you know, which, you know, I know.
Of course, always in the confines and limitations of what's legal. And even there, one should probably confine oneself a little further, because not everything that's legal is legitimate, or should be done. In other words, yeah. But I fully agree with you that the major challenge that was always there, by the way, with what we now call CDPs, which before has had another name, it's getting it consolidated. And that's the real challenge. Yeah. And at the end of the day, what is it? We are talking about the famed golden record, right? However we build it. IBM built it as a virtual one years ago in their data management tool, their data cleansing tools, and others build it physically. So
others speak from a profile, not a golden record any longer, as they want to go into the behavioral.
And it changes over time. It's even better.
Yeah. So when you look at all these technologies, you know, CDPs, email marketing, marketing automation, all this stuff, the challenge that I see in Latin America is number one, you know, and which nobody's talking, and you briefly mentioned, is the data quality. Okay? Because you know, again, when you implement all these systems in big companies, in groups, you know, you want to consolidate, but when you try that consolidation, is a challenge within Latin America. Forget the challenges that you have with, you know, with technology, but you know, the nuances that you have within Latin America. So that's a big challenge. And for example, you know, one of the challenges that we have today, and going back to omni-channel, is that, you know, the SMS market is big in Latin America as well. You know, text messages.
Yeah.
But if you buy, you know, short codes or long code in the States or in UK, they become extremely expensive. And since they don't have the good contract with the local telephone company, you might not get there. So, you have companies, for example, like Twilio, okay, that they already have local partnerships. I think Adobe as well, or Marketo, I believe, I want to say, they have local partnerships. And then, you don't buy, that omni-channel solution from the software vendor, and you buy locally, and you need to integrate it. So that's go back to the thinking globally and bring a solution that is global, because today we're truly global as well. So and that's going to change our way. So when you think about omni-channel, and I'm going to give you SMS, WhatsApp, everything in one platform. Well, in Latin America, that's not real. And I know it's not even real sometimes in Europe, and well, that doesn't work like that. Sometimes you have to work 100% with email. Sometimes you have to work 100% with push notifications. I mean, I have banks that bought the advertising module for the omni-channel solution, and they cannot use it because they have legal issues with Facebook and Twitter and whatever, So I don't need it. Vendor, I don't need it. Can I do a swap? No, because you gotta wait until next year. It comes a renewal. So that empathy needs to be out there. It's truly important. And I think people need to start a little. We probably know the small is beautiful. Start step by step, because Latin America is not that predictable for this type of solution. When you think about it.
I was asking, as Tom and I agreed that the privacy standard, GDPR, and local laws are some challenging things we have around the world. If we think very American with our tools and toys, we don't care about laws with that president, especially, and with privacy and GDPR. But the customers have a change in their mindset. They take it more serious these days.
Yeah, but this is what I think. I think this is the untold story. You can have Oracle. Oracle could be GDPR compliant in all the different tools.
Yeah.
Soho, Salesforce. When you put them together, they might not be GDPR compliant. Then you need something like identity management, a global preference centers that will help you to be GDPR compliant. Okay, and GDPR, is the starting point. I tell customers, start working with that, because you don't know, and you can select, depending on where you are in the country, Latin America, you can be 100%, or you can do this. Soho is doing 100%. I already had that experience. For example, when you put, and that's part of the challenge, when you put on a Soho landing page that you want to request information, you need to give me an opt-in right away. If you don't do the opt-in, you need to open the autoresponder email, and then it will go into the database. Okay, because of privacy and everything else, which is good. As a market, they say, "Oh my goodness, I don't want that."
Yeah.
But me, as a market, that I do need to provide better content, to be able that you do a quick opt-in, or you do a click, or whatever, So those challenges, when you put the ecosystem together, a lot of these companies and vendors, they don't provide 100% GDPR compliant process. That's what I like to see what SAP will do with the CDP, because they have a huge market in Latin America to bring the marketing people with the SAP back office, provide identity management, provide preference center, and have them start collecting data, whatever that is, with the different rules in the different countries, from that point of view. And now there's this other issue, the hacking. My wife has been hacked. I've been hacked already through the last 6 months, and the problem that we have here is that people are looking. Is my data secure enough?
Yeah.
So if I'm going to give you data, you need to give me something else in return. So that's a challenge as well that we're going to see from that point of view, and the consumer, with all this contactless and everything. I mean, it's really important to understand, where my data is going to be, and I think people are starting to understand that, from that. At least the consumers are going to push that somehow eventually. It doesn't matter who the president is.
Yeah, I was last looking to the question sheet, as we have some stuff prepared.
But You just now mentioned SAP's new approach there. In general, as it is built on a CRM platform, what do you think it's built in the security that a Zoho does, or rather not?
I don't know, to be honest, but what I would like to see from the vendors is that I go to a security data security, I don't know, module platform.
Yeah.
And as a company, I have up to 10 degrees to protect the customer data based on consent and based on content. Yeah. And then I would like to see a wizard that I have click, 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 and then go, you're in Mexico. You cannot do that in Mexico. Okay, and based on that, voila, you have your terms of service, you have your privacy laws already developed for you right there on the fly with all the controls and everything. Okay. You give that to your lawyer, come back and do it. I was listening to a live stream from the guys from Microsoft Mexico last week, and they said, when in doubt, don't do it. Period. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then figure out, stop the campaign, stop whatever you're doing, don't do it. Because you never know what's going to happen. So I would like to see that from the vendors, especially, United States, California has that. I don't know if the other countries will do it, but, I was working on a small project, a cannabis project, where, we have all these rules and regulations in all these different places, okay, that I said, okay, I need cannabis for my health, okay, let me put my zip code, and based on that, it will give you all the laws and the privacy issues that you have, and then we'll give you the requirements. So we need something like that as well, because, cannabis is not regulated, privacy won't be regulated. So at least you have, you as a company will tell your customer, hey, the law says this, I'm doing this, I'm giving you this, let's do a handshake and let's do business together. I'll give you good content and you buy from me and we take it from there, So that's point. And right now I'm doing a research. It's going to be published very soon, and you will know who the company is. And I'm finding a lot of people don't know what they don't know. I'm talking companies, and that's the problem. That's the challenge. So that's why they need tools like that. So that's something that I will probably see, especially again. This is thinking because the GDPR people are doing it because Europe decided to do it. Who's going to do it first without regulations? That I would like to. And goes back Ralph to the empathy. Understanding your global customers, all that stuff.
Okay.
What else? What do we have in that list?
Yeah, we really managed nicely in 1 hour and 3 minutes, nearly our list.
Yeah. we mainly covered it, I'd say.
Yeah.
Which made your last words pretty much famous last words, actually.
And a very respected approach to cannabis, which is a very cool buzzword. CRM and cannabis start with a C, and it is the aspect of the California Privacy Act, Code of Privacy Act, or something like that, which is very much alike to the GDPR from Germany, EU DSGVO and that stuff. And I believe that what I started to emphasize, that people are a lot more cautious now about their data, because we see how much data is getting away or in other people's hand. And we do some reflection on this. I take away from what you gave us as experience you made in the Latin American speaking, Spanish speaking and Portuguese speaking countries, that it is better to think even 3 times in the way the customers think before you approach with the Holy Grail message from Holy USA and try to put it over their head. without that the hat is fitting to what they like to wear. Yeah.
Agree.
This is roughly spoken from my German thinking about if I want to sell something people do not want to buy, and I try to force them to buy the bloody stuff, it will no longer work.
Yeah, and it's very simple. It's like, our friend Paul Greenville says, people buy from people that they know, people like them.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line, is the relationship.
Not only know, but also trust.
It would go a little further. They buy from people they like.
Mm-hmm.
And trust.
Well, if you like them, you usually trust them.
And that person is a buyer persona in that particular zip code.
Oh, well, that's okay.
And that's the thing. Then we make it too complicated.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, one last sentence from each of you, please. Then I will close the round. Tom, what's your takeaway from today?
Well, Latin America apparently is more different from the world that I know than it appeared to be. On the other hand, considering the country I moved to, considering what you said in the beginning about Mexico and the US, one could think that, the bigger country may become the appendix. Means the other one becomes the more important one over time.
Yeah, actually, being from Puerto Rico as a territory, sometimes it's easier to do business in Mexico than in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So that's part of the nuances in Latin America. So and then in terms of last words, if I talk a lot about technology and strategy in terms of how to put all this together. So if you're going to put the customer engagement ecosystem from the global perspective, make sure that when you do your strategy, you have a change management to the local culture. That's important, and that needs to include the empathy for understanding the technology, because whatever you're going to implement, it's going to change based on the technology and the skill set that you have today, and that's the biggest challenge today that we have. And you need to account for that, and you need to have guts to do it. The problem is today we don't have guts to do it. People need to have guts to do it.
And Marshall, as our friend in the background, helped us with the California Consumer Privacy Act, the CCPA, the abbreviation I did not recall properly. Thank you very much, Marshall. Gentlemen, it was a very vivid and enthusiastic hour we had together. I'm very grateful that we had you here, Jesus. And I learned a lot about your background, so that some of your ancestors might be from Germany, and we will trust that we will find some more details in some further time. And dear listeners and dear viewers, if you want to have a CRM guide who is capable of hiking, of rafting, and of knowing his territory, and not only Latin American territory, but also where he loves to go in the national parks, then you know the address to go for. And I trust if times get a bit relaxeder and we are no longer thinking about COVID as a pandemia, but something more historic, then it will be an exciting opportunity to do some traveling through the States for Tom and his family. And I believe it will be another opportunity, if there is somebody elected which is more tourist friendly, that I come back to the States as well. Yeah, hopefully, because honestly, I miss some real American burgers which are done in the United States of America. Yeah, that would be really nice.
Perfect. Let's put it in the bucket list.
Yeah. Okay. So we will close now. Thank you very much, Marshall, for your assistance and for your questions. Thank you, Winfried, Michael, and Alvaro. Alvaro, by the way, is from Cuba, and he is with one of our business partners we have in the background, and would like to motivate to join us on one of the CRM Convos, which we love
Beautiful.
to get sponsored. Okay, I will end now the broadcast.
Thank you so much.